So live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live. Here are the headlines. India joins the US-Led PAX Silica to secure AI supply chains. India's AI and semiconductor missions to get critical links. Ashwini Vaishnaw hails PAX Silica as the path to AI and semiconductor resilience. The US's Helberg, he calls India strategic and essential in shaping the 21st century order. PM Modi leads the global AI diplomacy at New Delhi summit, holding strategic talks with leaders from Liechtenstein, Slovakia and Sri Lanka. Trump warns Iran again, strike a deal in 10 days or face bad things. Tensions rise further in West Asia. Well, India has formally joined PAX Silica, the US-led effort. This is on artificial intelligence and supply chain security. This happened on the sidelines of the Global AI Impact Summit being held in New Delhi. PAX, which is Latin for peace, denotes peace, stability and prosperity.
On the fifth day of India AI Impact Summit, India formally joined PAX Silica, the US-led alliance on artificial intelligence and supply chain security. The declaration was signed by Secretary S. Krishnan, US Under-Secretary Jacob Helberg and US Ambassador to India Sergio Gore. Helberg hailed India joining PAX Silica, noting that it underscores the importance of economic security translating into national security.
Our fundamental mission is not resistance, it's renewal. We are forging a supply chain that is the foundation for prosperity. We are building a new architecture that diffuses intelligence, placing the awesome power of AI into the palm of our people's hands and unleashing a wave of unprecedented possibility.
Gore said that India's entry into PAX Silica is not just symbolic, it is strategic and essential.
India's entry into PAX Silica isn't just symbolic, it's strategic, it's essential. India is a nation with deep talent, deep enough to rival challengers. India's engineering depth offers critical capabilities for this vital coalition.
At the ceremony, Union Minister of Electronics and Information Technology, Ashwini Vaishnaw, said that India is not just holding a summit here, but building the future.
India is a trusted country, and that's because our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji has conducted the foreign policy in a way where the trust and respect, the respect of a 5,000-year-old civilization, that gravitas that जो भारत की civilization का ठहराव है, वो ठहराव आज दुनिया मानती है, वो gravitas आज दुनिया मानती है, और इसीलिए भारत पे trust है.
Launched in December 2025, PAX Silica is US Department of State's flagship effort on AI and supply chain security, advancing new economic security consensus among allies and trusted partners. It applies to the foundations of modern AI and computing. The initiative aims to build a secure, resilient, innovation-driven technology ecosystem spanning critical minerals, energy, advanced manufacturing, semiconductors, AI infrastructure, and logistics. Its core objectives are to reduce coercive dependencies, to partner to secure global tech supply chains, to address AI supply chain opportunities and vulnerabilities, to exploring joint investment, and to protect sensitive technologies and build trusted digital infrastructure. PAX Silica signatories are India, Australia, Greece, Israel, Japan, Qatar, South Korea, Singapore, UAE, and UK. PAX Silica highlights technological revolution in AI is accelerating, increasingly reorganizing the world economy and reshaping global supply chains. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, the Google CEO Sundar Pichai was also present at the signing ceremony, and he emphasized that the world is on the cusp of an era of hyper-progress and new discoveries through AI. He also highlighted the need for collective efforts to make AI benefits accessible to everyone and everywhere, highlighting the critical role of the US-India partnership.
I said we are on the cusp of an era of hyper-progress and new discoveries, but the best outcomes are not guaranteed. We must work together to ensure the benefits of AI are available to everyone and everywhere. The US-India partnership has a critical role to play. Google is proud to serve as a connection point between them, both figuratively and literally. I believe India is going to have an extraordinary trajectory with AI, and we are supporting with a full stack commitment, including products, skilling, and infrastructure.
Well, the U.S. Undersecretary of State for Economic Affairs, Jacob Hellberg, he says that India brings significant critical minerals refining capacity to the table, driving strong American business presence, and he added that Washington is seeking to complement each other's strengths, that is, India and the U.S.'s strengths, to deepen mutually beneficial ties and secure resilient supply chains.
India brings to the table a lot of refining capacity for critical minerals. It has one of the deepest benches in terms of raw human capital. That's why a lot of American companies already have operations here in different tech hubs across India. And so we're looking for ways that we can actually complement each other's strengths. We're very optimistic about deepening those relationships in ways that are mutually beneficial to secure our supply chains.
The U.S. Ambassador to India, Sergio Gore, he in fact says that the formal signing of this trade deal will take place soon, the trade deal between India and the United States, praising India as one of the world's largest economies and also expressing satisfaction that the interim agreement has been finalized. He also said that the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, will be traveling to India soon.
The signing will happen very soon. In fact, even this week, we have both teams are talking to each other and actively getting to a place where both will be able to sign. Look, the reality is there's tens of thousands of points. We're not dealing with a small country. This is one of the biggest economies. And so we're thrilled that the interim deal is done. You have the few tweaking points that are left to do. But Secretary Rubio will be traveling to India very soon, in a matter of months. And so that'll be part of the Quad along with many other initiatives.
And Jessica Taneja now joins us with more on the story. Jessica, what were the key points highlighted by India for joining PAX Silica?
Well, the key point, of course, was to secure supply chains for critical tech as well as rare earth minerals. You've seen the kind of export control policies which have sort of come into play in the recent past, and the kind of turbulence we've seen in geoeconomics, given that there is one country that has been manufacturing and producing and, mining those rare earth minerals. So the end-to-end production has been with just solely with China, but not naming China as much. But that is where it centers around, and also wants to build on coalitions of democratic countries who can sort of ensure that its restrictions around the supply chains of critical tech and rare earth minerals is in fact not the case in the future. So I think this is also something that the Americans were looking forward to collaborate with India. And you'd recall it was Ambassador Sergio Gore when he had arrived in New Delhi just about a month ago, where he had said that this is one of the things that India is going to focus on. On his arrival, he had made sure to point out that PAX Silica initiative was something that the Americans were looking to work towards, and India would be an important partner in that, given its economic heft as well as its participation, not just in AI, but also critical tech and rare earth minerals. And looking at how to optimize that is certainly the main focus.
And Jessica, how have international partners reacted to India's entry into PAX Silica during the AI Impact Summit? Jessica.
Well, at this point, there has only been a consideration or an announcement with America. At least I haven't been able to gather information around what the other countries have been thinking. It was just been about an hour. I don't think I have been able to sort of get any reactions here. We haven't seen much of the reactions from other countries, but I'm sure the acceptance is quite out there, because these are the kind of countries that are going to build coalitions in the future, given the kind of critical tech and its weaponization that we've seen in the recent past. So we haven't heard from any other country yet on how they react to India joining the PAX Silica, but that was something that was already given, and India continues to pursue its own autonomy and its own policy when it comes to its own energy, not just its energy needs, but also critical and rare earth minerals, which have become very important to any kind of infrastructure, not just AI, but also the complete digitization that depends on it.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Jessica Taneja, for joining us. And to put this all into perspective, we have with us Professor Rahul Mishra from the School of International Studies at JNU. He's also joining us live. He listened in to our conversation with Jessica as well. Professor, tell us, how does PAX Silica strengthen global supply chains for AI, semiconductors, critical minerals, and what role does India play in this ecosystem?
Well, PAX Silica is driven by this concern that China has been not only trying to monopolize REE, rare earth elements, but also the technology. They are unwilling to share either the minerals or the technology with partners. And we in India have seen past 3 months that how these technologies and rare earth minerals have not been supplied to Indian companies. The restrictions are more stringent. And Indian companies also had to sign a kind of agreement that these resources coming from China will not be used for defense purposes. So countries are worried about China's moves when it comes to semiconductor technology, rare earth minerals, and emerging critical technologies. PAX Silica provides an alternative to countries across the world. India is the 10th member in PAX Silica, to all these countries to make a resilient, open, and transparent system in building, in fortifying their capacities and capabilities in the AI sector and acquiring rare earth minerals. So I think looking at the broad base of countries that you have as which are part of PAX Silica, it tells us that it is going to be a mechanism, a AI supply chain mechanism, which not only deals with minerals, but also technology, the know-how, the semiconductor design, chips design and fabrication, as well as the supply of it across continents.
Right, Professor.
And this is based on countries that are in favor of an open, transparent, and free trade system.
Indeed. So that's in the larger context. But India has, after all, got a domestic AI and semiconductor, these missions. And India is putting in about 90,000 crore rupees into these missions. So will this PAX Silica alignment also accelerate India's, technological ambitions?
Absolutely. I think the agreement getting signed while the AI Summit is still on, AI Impact Summit is still on, tells us a lot about how the US is looking at India as a potential partner. India's really the super specialization is in the chip design, fabrication, and acquisition of resources. Even though we have a reserve of 8.5 trillion ton, that has not been tapped. The potential has not been tapped. So India has to partner with other countries, whether it is in terms of design and in terms of technology. South Korea is a leader, Taiwan is a leader, and the Netherlands. So India's vision for AI and use of its semiconductor chips, the semiconductor mission, I think these missions will be realized to their fullest potential with the support of these countries. What India needs at this moment is more support on fabrication. We have the designs, we have our engineers, the technical aspect is pretty good, but in terms of fabrication, in terms of acquiring resources, rare earth elements, I think Australia's support is very important there. So with this partnership and cooperation amongst these 10 countries, India's AI and semiconductor mission I believe is going to fructify and reach its fullest potential.
So you have actually touched upon some of the geopolitical implications for India joining PAX Silica. But, you know, I mean, is it this group versus, let's say, China and other non-member states at the end of the day?
Well, it is not an anti-China club. It is, but it is definitely a club that believes in a fair and open and transparent mechanism that is based on open and liberal trade. It is a mechanism that also believes that weaponization of rare earth elements or semiconductor technology should not be something that that countries should opt for. I think Prime Minister Modi's speech at the AI Impact Summit laid down the really the guidelines for India's strategy and diplomacy when it comes to semiconductor and AI sector cooperation. And Prime Minister said that AI and semiconductor technology should not be weaponized. It is not a black box. It should be like an open sky. So I think saying that it is an anti-China club is, I think, taking it too far. But the way China has been behaving, it is very clear that China is not really supportive of other countries acquiring technology and advancing their AI and semiconductor sectors to greater heights. So China is certainly looking at semiconductor sector, rare earth minerals, AI at large as a weapon to deprive other countries and also take great advantage of their advances that they have made.
So also could, you know, PAX Silica create some contradictions between the national sovereignty in tech policies and also the collective global commitments? Because, you know, after all, even the UN Secretary General says that there's no borders here, you know, for AI. And now we have to concern, once the internet also had the same concerns, but now AI is of a different, you know, of a different order of magnitude when we are talking about these kind of borderless movements.
Well, that's a very provocative question, very incisive, I would say, your comment. Resource nationalism is something that countries cannot get away with. At one point, these issues will come up, even in PAX Silica. America under Trump has been very mercantilist in its approach. But I think looking at the larger picture, the way these countries, all of them have minor or major issues with the US and the way Trump administration has been behaving. And yet, looking at the larger picture, the greater concern, the shared concern that these countries have, eventually, I think all like-minded countries will come on board. Whether the United Nations is able to lead this initiative and make resource acquisition and advanced emerging and advanced technologies accessible to all is something that is still under question. I think it will take us another 2-3 decades when countries across the globe reach this consensus that yes, AI and semiconductors, the emerging technologies should be accessible to all countries, regardless of their economic position, regardless of their alliance mechanisms, and regardless of their capacities to acquire or develop these technologies. So I think that time is really far from us at this moment.
No, but you know, are there any risks of fragmentation in global AI governance because of PAX Silica? Because I mean, at the end of the day, these countries have their democracies, they have certain freedoms, and you know, but even within them, there are also some which have stricter rules, like let's say the EU against the US, which is more liberal. And then how would you look at this contents of the companies which are involved with AI, you know, because after all, they have to go across all the entire world. I mean, I'm looking at a big picture where we are seeing perhaps, you know, not a multipolar, but poles being developed, which are certain more liberal versus more controlled.
Look, this is the beauty of plurilateral and minilateral initiatives. Not really comparable with Quad, but minilateral mechanisms, plurilateral mechanisms, plug the gap that exists in multilateral international systems. So PAX Silica in that sense aims, and I'm sure it will help plug those gaps that exist in global AI governance. Now, whether these countries should give away their privileged position, their advantageous position, I don't think so. They will be at the helm, they will be at the leadership position, these 10 countries, maybe more in times to come. And then based on their experience in dealing with the challenges posed by China and other countries, they will advance their economies based on AI and emerging technologies. And yes, at one point, global governance will also figure in. We must not forget that MNCs, of course, multinational corporations, are at the front and center of these technologies, but they exist within the territorial sovereign boundaries of nation states. And governments, as we are already noticing, governments are posing restrictions. They are trying to clip the wings of these companies, which are going really overboard in terms of how these technologies are to be used by common people, and what are the potential damages that citizens of these countries might incur. Social media restrictions are already in place in Australia. India just this month put some restrictions. Europe is considering it. France is considering it. So nation states will pose restrictions on MNCs as to how they operate, how they store their data, how they use the data that is stored. So all these restrictions will come at one point. I think the securitization or making AI technology, and if I may include the wider social media platforms, the emerging platforms, this element of governments controlling or tightening their control will come at one point. This is the time when MNCs and even small companies are growing. They are showing as to how powerful they are and what roles they could play in boosting economies across these countries. So in case of India also, there will come a point when government will have a national policy on how AI technology and how these companies have to operate, and globally also. So I think these are things that happen in a gradual manner. Okay. So I think next.
So it's early days, but anyway, we've covered some ground. Thank you very much, Professor Rahul Mishra, for joining us and putting things into context. Now, we're going to take a short break, and when we return, there'll be a lot more news. Stay with us.
Welcome to Jharkhand, the land of forests. Always welcoming. The vibe.
You're watching DD India News. I'm Mark Lin. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a bilateral meeting with Prince Aloy of Liechtenstein at the Hyderabad House in New Delhi on Friday. The discussions held on the sidelines of the India AI Impact Summit 2026 focused on strengthening bilateral ties, innovation, emerging technologies, and mutual cooperation. The meeting underscores India's growing global partnerships in AI and beyond. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also held a bilateral meeting with the Slovak Republic President Peter Pellegrini. These leaders, they discussed strengthening ties in innovation, modern technology, and responsible AI development. So the engagement builds on the recent high-level exchanges as well, aiming to boost India-Slovakia partnership in digital transformation and global AI governance. Further, Prime Minister also held a bilateral meeting with the Sri Lankan President Anura Kumara Dissanayaka. And the leaders, they discussed deepening India-Sri Lanka ties in technology, trade, regional security, responsible AI collaboration as well. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi also held a bilateral meeting with the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on the sidelines of the AI Impact Summit. And earlier in the day, Prime Minister Modi interacted with CEOs of AI and deep tech startups. The startups participating in the roundtable are tackling population scale challenges across key sectors and healthcare. They use AI for advanced diagnostics, gene therapy, and efficient patient record management to extend quality care to the last mile. The AI startups praised India's sustained push to strengthen its artificial intelligence ecosystem. They highlighted the sector's rapid expansion and immense untapped potential, noting that the global momentum of AI innovation and deployment is increasingly shifting towards India. And on the sidelines of the ongoing India AI Impact Summit 2026, India's Minister for Electronics and Information Technology, Ashwini Vaishnaw, met Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google and Alphabet, to deepen India's digital and AI partnership. The discussions focused on expanding investments in data centers, strengthening AI research across education, healthcare, and renewable energy, and fostering innovation-led growth. At the India AI Impact Summit, the Skill Development and Entrepreneurship Minister Jayant Chaudhary, MOS, he said that the focus should be on capacity building.
We have to have faith. We have to stress on capacity building. We have to focus. Every enterprise in India should have AI teams, but they should also be looking at upskilling and reskilling their workforce.
As the India AI Impact Summit is underway in the national capital, we have some other reactions of prominent tech leaders from Indian and global firms, lauding Prime Minister Modi's AI vision of harnessing artificial intelligence to transform India into a global hub for innovation and inclusion. Let's listen.
The vision of the Prime Minister for the use of AI, the potential of AI, and how human-centric it should be, the need for it to be open, shared, and collaborative for benefiting every citizen and society in India and everywhere was remarkable and was hugely appreciated by everyone. The event brought together all the world leaders in AI and businesses and engaged in very, very fruitful conversations on what can happen in the future and how to work together. I would like to compliment the government under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji for convening such a wonderful event.
Incredible opportunity for India across many different industries. I think the same way that India had leapfrog in mobile communication, mobile internet, that's the opportunity for AI, and we're very, very proud to play a small part into that.
I think his vision is very powerful and is very prescient. I appreciate that Prime Minister Modi is thinking about how AI not just benefits India, but through doing that can actually benefit and lift up many people in the world. And, you know, it's not just about the top, but it's about lifting the floor. So I think that's a very powerful vision. I think I'm impressed. He really appreciates AI as a technology and how India, you know, has sort of some unique abilities to both be a leader in AI and you know, how that can transform the Indian economy. But in so doing, that he really has a vision about how to think about the benefits for basically for the world globally. So I'm super impressed and appreciated being here and excited to invest more into India.
Well, at the launch of the Export Promotion Mission in New Delhi, the Union Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal, he talked about the success of the India AI Impact Summit and how it's going to open new opportunities for the youth of our country through rising investments. He added that the week's developments have laid the foundation for a bright economic future. Let's listen.
This will provide opportunity to our young men and women going forward It's going to open up a flood of opportunities with more and more investments coming into this field, whether it's data centers, whether it's engaging with artificial intelligence, machine learning, quantum computing, whether it's developing our own language models, LLMs, whether it's seeing how we can be at the forefront of applied AI, where we have significant talent and skills and strengths. Clearly, this week has set the stage for a very bright future for India.
President Draupadi Murmu extended her warm wishes to the people of Arunachal Pradesh on the occasion of their statehood day. In a post on X, the president wrote, and I quote, "Warm greetings to the people of Arunachal Pradesh and Mizoram on their statehood day. Both the states are blessed with pristine natural beauty, rich cultural heritage, and enterprising people. These states continue to inspire with their remarkable contributions and commitment to national development. My best wishes for the sustained progress and prosperity of the people of both states," unquote. In a post on X, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also extended his greetings. He wrote, and I quote, "Blessed with majestic landscapes and an extraordinary cultural diversity, Arunachal Pradesh stands as a shining example of harmony between tradition and nature. Its spirited and industrious citizens play a vital role in strengthening the nation's progress. At the same time, the state's diverse tribal ethos adds immense richness to our nation. May the state continue to scale new heights of development in the times to come." Now, speaking at the 65th anniversary of the Rashtriya Samachar Samiti this happened on Thursday, the Vice President of Nepal, Ram Sahai Yadav, and he stressed the role played by key media. This is to keep people awake and to ensure the spirit of freedom of expression. In his speech, Yadav stated that maintaining quality journalism in the present context with increased quantity was a major challenge, and he urged the Rashtriya Samachar Samiti to transform this challenge into an opportunity to lead professional journalism. Still to come here on DD India NewsHour. The US-led Board of Peace holds its first meeting of leaders, aims at advancing Trump's plan of stabilizing Gaza. UK's former Prince Andrew is released from police custody after being arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office.
Uttar Pradesh welcomes to an experience like no other.
You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Mark Lynn. Here's a recap of our top stories. India joins the US-led PAX Silica to secure AI supply chains. India's AI and semiconductor missions to get critical links. Ashwini Vaishnaw hails PAX Silica as the path to AI and semiconductor resilience. US's Helberg. He calls India a strategic and essential part of shaping the 21st century order. PM Modi leads global AI diplomacy at New Delhi summit, holding strategic talks with leaders from Liechtenstein, Slovakia and Sri Lanka. The US President Donald Trump has given a fresh ultimatum to Iran, asking Tehran to make a meaningful deal in negotiations with Washington in the next 10 days, or else bad things happen. Now, this statement came amid the military buildup in the West Asian region. The warnings were issued days after the US and Iran held a second round of Omani-mediated talks, this time in Geneva, with the US seeking to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb, something it says it's not pursuing, and Iran seeking relief from US sanctions. But Trump has repeatedly threatened military action against Iran, at first over a deadly crackdown on protesters last month, then more recently over its nuclear program.
Well, we're going to make a deal, or we're going to get a deal one way or the other. We're either going to get a deal or it's going to be unfortunate for them. I would think that would be enough time, 10, 15 days, pretty much maximum.
Trump's comments came shortly after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued his own warning to Iran, saying if Iran attacks Israel, they will receive a response they cannot even imagine. In a letter to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Tehran said that it would not start any war, but that in the event that it is subjected to military aggression, Iran will respond decisively and proportionately in its exercise of its right to self-defense. Denmark's Maritime Authority had detained an Iran-flagged container vessel anchored in the Nordic country's waters on the grounds that it was not properly registered. The ship, using the name Nora, was initially sailing under the Comoros flag. But Comoros informed Denmark that the vessel was not found in its registry. LSEG data, in fact, showed that the Nora is now under the Iranian flag. So the Nora shares the same International Maritime Organization number as a vessel formerly named Cerus, which is a container ship on the US Treasury's sanctions list. The vessel has been lying idle for the past 25 days. US President Donald Trump convened members of his newly formed Board of Peace on Thursday, gathering world leaders in Washington to advance his plan to stabilize Gaza. Well, Trump announced that the US would contribute $10 billion to the Board of Peace. He also said that the other Board of Peace members had donated roughly $7 billion in total, and that several countries committed to send troops and police to help stabilize Gaza. During the event, speakers approved the 20-point plan and offered their assistance on its implementation. India also attended the inaugural meeting of the Board of Peace on Gaza as an observer country. India was represented by the Charge d'Affaires of the Indian Embassy in Washington, D.C., Namgya Khampa. Yes, and India has not in fact joined the Board of Peace. Indonesia and the United States signed a landmark reciprocal trade agreement on Thursday in Washington, D.C. The U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer and Indonesia's Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs, they formalized this deal following months of negotiations. The U.S. will maintain a 19% tariff on most Indonesian exports, reduced from an initial 32%, with exemptions for key commodities like coffee, chocolate, natural rubber, spices, and potentially nearly 1,700 others, including palm oil. In return, Indonesia will eliminate tariffs on over 99% of U.S. products across sectors. They will address non-tariff barriers as well and accept U.S. standards on vehicle safety, emissions, medical devices, and pharmaceuticals. Britain's monarchy is facing unprecedented turmoil as the former Prince Andrew, now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, was arrested on February 19 on suspicion of misconduct in public office, linked to sharing confidential trade documents with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The police detained him at Sandringham Estate, searching properties in Norfolk and Berkshire, including his former Royal Lodge residence. However, Andrew was released under investigation later in the evening. He remains 8th in line to the throne despite being stripped of titles last year. Meanwhile, King Charles III stated that the law must take its course, pledging palace support. Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre's family hailed the arrest as a victory amid ongoing probes into newly released files, while the U.S. President Donald Trump called it very sad for the royals. The estate of the convicted U.S. sex offender Jeffrey Epstein has agreed to pay up to $35 million to settle the outstanding legal claims of potentially dozens of victims. According to a proposed court judgment filed Thursday, the settlement is related to victims who said they were sexually assaulted or abused or trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein between January 1, 1995 and through August 10, 2019. Epstein's estate would pay $35 million if there are 40 or more people eligible in the class, and $25 million if there are fewer than 40 in this class action suit. Meanwhile, Sweden has announced $1.4 billion in military and military aid for Ukraine. This is focused primarily on air defense capabilities. So the military aid, it's a package, and it was the third largest so far that Sweden has delivered to Ukraine. It had been focused on the needs communicated by Ukraine. This would include additional units of Trident Mk2 mobile anti-aircraft artillery systems, which Sweden announced in early February that it was going to supply to Ukraine. Sweden also said that the aim was to have the systems delivered to Ukraine within 24 months. The remainder of these funds would go towards large quantities of ammunition, including long-range artillery shells, as well as training and the expansion of a cooperation project with Ukraine on long-range drones. This is Sweden's 21st aid package, in fact, to Ukraine since 2022. NATO continues its steadfast Dart 26 maneuver as around 350 soldiers from 5 countries practice terrain conquests at the Bergen military training area. They were also supported from the air and by artillery. Steadfast Dart 26 was NATO's largest exercise this year. It is a joint deployment exercise to test the rapid deployment and integration of Allied reaction force. A total of around 10,000 soldiers are participating in the overall maneuver, which is scheduled to last several months and continue until March. In addition to units from the German armed forces, troops from Spain, Italy, Czechia, and Turkey took part in the exercise in Bergen. Steadfast Dart 26 is the second major deployment exercise by NATO's Rapid Response Force. Argentina's lower house of Congress early on Friday approved a contentious labor bill. It's a reform bill backed by President Javier Milei, even after unions opposing the changes staged a nationwide strike that had brought parts of the country to a halt. So this bill, passed last week by the Senate, was approved with 135 votes in favor and 115 against. Now, after going through some modifications, it will go back to the Senate for a final vote before it can become law. The government argues that this bill, approved last week by the Senate, would encourage investment and also boost formal employment by reducing severance costs and also limiting the right to strike in essential services. But labor unions strongly oppose the bill. They call it anti-worker. Argentina's largest labor federation, CGT, has launched a 24-hour nationwide stoppage involving transport workers, also public sector staff, bank employees among them. Now, what's happened is that the state airline, which is Aerolíneas Argentina, they've also joined the strike. The subway service and many bus lines in Buenos Aires also have halted. Maritime workers also have staged a 48-hour strike disrupting cargo operations in the port of Rosario, one of the world's biggest agricultural export hubs. So protests turned tense outside the Congress as security forces used tear gas and water cannons to disperse demonstrators. An independent United Nations probe has accounted mass killings of non-Arab communities when the Rapid Support Forces paramilitary group captured the Sudanese capital of Al-Fashir. Now, they've said that killings bear hallmarks that point to genocide. At the end of October last year, the RSF took over the city, which had been the last remaining stronghold of the Sudanese armed forces in the Darfur region in the west of the country, with thousands of people killed and raped during 3 days of horror. The UN Independent International Fact-Finding Mission for Sudan found evidence that the RSF carried out a pattern of coordinated and repeated targeting of individuals based on ethnicity, gender, and perceived political affiliation, including mass killings, rape, and torture, as well as inflicting conditions of life calculated to bring about the group's physical destruction, core elements of the crime of genocide under international law. At a UN Security Council meeting on Thursday, humanitarian officials said that the situation for women and girls has deteriorated sharply since fighting erupted nearly 3 years ago. The United States imposed sanctions on 3 commanders of the RSF over their role in the 18-month siege and capture of Al-Fashir, accusing the group of carrying out systematic and widespread killings.
Sexual and gender-based violence against Sudanese women and girls is a central feature of this conflict. Such violence, including rape, torture, enslavement, trafficking, detention, abductions, and killing, continues since the beginning of the war. We at SIHA, we have documented over 1,294 cases of conflict-related sexual violence against women and girls, perpetrated primarily by the RSF and their allies. In Darfur, our allies have deliberately targeted women and girls from the 4 Masalit, Perti, Zagawa, and Tanjur communities on the basis of their ethnicity. As the UN fact-finding mission confirmed in a report today that this is part of a strategy of genocide aimed at eradicating native African communities.
This is not just a humanitarian crisis, it is a regional security crisis and a migration crisis too. We have seen the impact for regional security on neighbouring countries, on the whole of the Horn of Africa and along the Sahel. Opportunities for extremists to exploit and terror groups to take hold, and millions displaced from their homes, the risk of increased migration, destabilising nations nearby, but also across and into Europe as well. This affects all of us. And that is why we need action, and we need the United Nations to be a force for countries to come together from across the world to demand peace. The UK is the 3rd largest Sudan donor, providing $200 million this year, plus $54 million for Sudanese refugees. And in Chad, I announced a further $27 million to support survivors of sexual violence.
And we are going to go to get you some more visuals that are coming in from the sidelines of the AI Impact Summit here in New Delhi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has met with the Prime Minister of Mauritius, Dr. Naveen Chandra Ramagulam. Both of them share a close relationship. India and also Mauritius have close relations, long-standing relations, and this island nation in the Western Indian Ocean is anchored in shared history with India because demography too is similar, culture is similar. There are largely Indian people of Indian origin living in Mauritius. The key reason for the special ties is the fact that Indian origin people comprise about 70% of the island's population, as I was saying. So the relationship has been characterized by a high level of trust, mutual understanding at the leadership level, and also continued high-level political engagement. And these special ties have resulted in a uniquely close relationship. It's cooperation in maritime security, development partnership, capacity building cooperation in international fora, technical assistance through deputation of Indian experts to GOM, also vibrant cultural exchanges. There's close people-to-people ties, very good relations with Mauritius. India officially assumed the chairmanship of the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium from Thailand on Friday for a period from 2025 to 2027. This marks a significant milestone for the Indian Navy and also India's strategic role in the Indian Ocean region. The IONS mandate is crucial for India following the International Fleet Review and Exercise Milan. 25 countries in the Indian Ocean are members of this forum. Addressing the gathering, the Chief of Indian Navy underlined that every nation has equal status in the forum, irrespective of the size. The challenges are growing and we need to face them all together.
आज से अगले 2 साल के लिए ये चेयरमैनशिप हमारे पास फिर से 16 साल के बाद आई है और हमने अपना रोड मैप ऑलरेडी तैयार कर लिया है कि किस तरह से ये जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है इसका किस तरह से बाखूबी से यूटिलाइज़ किया जाए जिससे कि इंडियन ओशन रीजन में मैरीटाइम सिक्योरिटी, मैरीटाइम चैलेंजेस उनको अच्छे से एड्रेस किया जाए, अकेले नहीं, सबके साथ मिलकर, पार्टनर नेशन के साथ मिलकर.
We're going to get you all the sports news. The Indian captain Harmanpreet Kaur became the highest capped player in women's international cricket when she made her 356th appearance in T20 match against Australia. Kaur surpassed New Zealand's Susie Bates. Now, the 36-year-old Kaur has played 6 tests as well, 161 one-day internationals and 189 T20 matches for her country since 2009. And Bates, who's 2 years older than Kaur, has not played for New Zealand since making her 355th international appearance in October during the ODI World Cup. So Kaur has scored 8 centuries as well and 38 50s for India. She's also led the country to their first Women's World Cup title on home soil in November. A Moroccan court has sentenced 19 fans to imprisonment for hooliganism at the Africa Cup of Nations final between Morocco and Senegal that saw supporters trying to storm the field. After a hearing that lasted more than 5 hours, the judge ruled that the fans, 18 Senegalese and a French national, were guilty of more than half a dozen charges, including damaging sporting facilities and committing violence. 11 people were sentenced to 1 year in prison. 4 were sentenced to 6 months in prison. The remaining 4 were sentenced to 3 months in prison. The defendants were arrested last month when outraged supporters tried to storm the pitch to protest a late penalty awarded to the host Morocco during the final, which Senegal eventually won 1-0. So at the end, let's get you some visuals from the UAE, where the Burj Khalifa was lit up in the tricolour to celebrate the success of the India AI Impact Summit in New Delhi. So this gesture, it highlights strengthening bilateral ties, including the UAE's investment in Indian AI startups and also joint initiatives under the 2022 comprehensive economic partnership agreement targeting $100 billion in annual trade by 2030. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those of you on the go, get the latest news and updates from India and across the world. The DD India mobile app is always available on Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code and download it. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Mark Lynn from all of us here in Delhi. Thank you very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.